Hi guys, welcome back to Creative Tap. Now today I'm going to be bringing you the second part in our interview with Matt Skonicki. So we're going to be looking at deepfakes, virtual production, Python. We're also going to be asking Matt about some of the challenging shots he's faced in his career. So this is all going to be about visual effects technology. So let's dive on in. So the first one, really interesting one actually. Do you think that, we're talking about new technologies and all that, do you feel that deepfake has a future position in the VFX industry?
I mean, Deepfake is that program that seems to be free, right? That everyone's using, and it's like it captures a series of images from different movies, and
it's like
their face.
Machine learning to do face replacement. So, yeah.
The key with that is resolution right now, because they need to find a way to upres, because it seems like the resolution is very low. Like the guys over at Corridor Digital were doing that. Stuff with Keanu Reeves, and they'll tell you in the interview, like, you can only have a resolution of like 512 by 512 or something, because of the resolution based on the footage you're actually sampling, which is probably like a DVD or maybe Blu-ray. I don't know how that all works. I haven't jumped into the deepfake craze, but yeah, that technology. Somebody go online, check out. Some guy took The Irishman, and they had done like a thermal CG redo of Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro, but somebody online took it further and threw deepfake in and captured Pesci and De Niro's face in other movies, and added on to what they did in Irishman to make them look younger. And it looked like 10,000 times better, which was really weird.
I think I do remember seeing that now, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. As far as new technologies, I think, of course, we've got Unreal
5 coming out? Yeah.
Which I believe is in beta right now. People can sign up for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that to me is just amazing. I mean, I'm coming from a game design background where we optimize all the geometry. We do LODs 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4. So that as the character gets further away from the object, we do a flip where it gives it low res. Now we've got this crazy engine. A lot of friends of mine that have worked in the game industry are like, "No, it's a trick. There's no way you can have that many polygons on the screen and that much texture resolution on a screen." And it was just like, yeah, that's impossible to do that. So we'll see when this thing, I haven't even touched it yet, but I'm assuming, being at this college, we're going to be diving in. That's what I love about this college. It's more scientific, it's more experimental. It's not about making you into a Dennis Muren. It's really about you being a pioneer in a whole new field, and not pie in the sky speaking wise. Because you can go into a school like, we want you to be technologists. And it's like, yeah, is that going to pay my bills? Am I going to become the next Steve Jobs, or is that one out of a billion? And that's not what I see at this school. I see some amazing, dedicated students tampering into technology. They have a facility here that is like all of this. They got that crazy treadmill from Ready Player One,
Oh, yeah.
And they have technology here which they could incorporate into like LED based, like the stagecraft they did in ILM.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this like, this is crazy, and all these guys are like, they're going a different direction. They're really going a different direction. They're all about like, no, I ain't gonna do that. I'm going here. You know what I mean? It's not just like, well, I'm gonna be a compositor, or I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna try and incorporate this and this and this. And part of what I have to do as a master's is a thesis of a new technology. I have to build an actual new form of technology.
Wow.
Which is really project-based, which is crazy. And yeah, I mean, it's weird. I'll be working in a building that has an actual nuclear reactor in it. It's the only school here that has a nuclear reactor in it. It's like a little baby nuclear reactor, but it's just like, I mean, it's got all type. I mean, this is like a Steve Jobs college. I really believe it is. But it's great to get away from Chicago. It was bittersweet. And I'm just like, yeah, sorry. But yeah, technology-wise, I really don't see anything in the realm of compositing that's like, oh my gosh, except more of the stuff that is, real-time rendering.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's awesome. It sounds quite an innovative course that your the masters that you're about to do. Very, very innovative.
It's weird. So I can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, out of all I know you said you've been in education for a while, but can you think of any really technically sort of challenging shots or projects that you've worked on, and how did you overcome those challenges?
One was a movie called Thrill Ride, which was a feature-length film that a very ambitious director.
I can already see the challenge.
Yeah, we know about that. I always warn about the narcissistic. He's not a narcissist, but I'm saying the film student that wants all this and for nothing, And I always tell my students, beware of the film student, But he was actually his son had passed of cancer, and he wrote this incredible screenplay with his son before he passed, and this millionaire gave him the money to make the movie. And we literally took a huge soundstage, like Oprah Winfrey has used this stage area in West Chicago. It's a big sound studio or a movie studio. And we brought in old like carnival rides and so forth. And we made a virtual theme park in a huge theater, or a huge studio space, the biggest studio they had. And it was the whole movie is about indoor amusement park. You could watch it online. It's streaming on all the major things. It's called Thrill Ride, but I was the VFX supervisor for that. And I had to make that movie twice. I had to take every shot, which was so unbelievably complex, and make a video tutorial on how to accomplish that shot. I had to make the whole movie, and then my students at the school, which collaborated for 2 years, mind you, had to go and make this film themselves. So I had to make it, and then they made it. They took my tutorials, and they made it. It was the most ridiculous. This thing had dragons, and it just walking through the amusement park and CG. It had a whole underground sequence that we had to go for another VFX house because we were like, we need more people on this. Yeah. But that was the craziest time. As far as shots, Samuel Jackson snow globe shot. I cannot take credit as finishing the actual comp. I have it in my reel, but there was another artist, really awesome, talented artist that finished it off. I worked under an amazing art director who, this was at the time, I think it's Carbon VFX right now. And he threw me this shot, which was crazy. It started out on Sam Jackson's hand with a snow globe in it, and it pulled out, but we had to physically zoom digitally into his hand, which would lose resolution. So we had to swap it into a higher resolution version. We had a modeler build an entire, and basically Sam Jackson's in a snow globe, and it starts with him in a snow globe in a Christmas city in the snow globe, which they shot on a soundstage in LA, huge soundstage. And then he's sitting there saying, Capital One, blah, blah, blah. And it pulls out of that, and then you got the globe in his hand. We had to take that out and get a whole different globe on it, a snow globe in his hand, and he's sitting on a couch next to a fireplace. So this was like a Christmas commercial. You could look it up online, snow globe, Capital One. But it was the most difficult shot to figure out how to get that footage tracked in there without it shaking because it was zooming up on nothing. Yeah. And my boss, who was an amazing art director, said, he was like, he gives me this shot right off the bat. I'm like, I'm not ready for this. And I had like tons of nodes and all this. And I tried and I tried and I tried. And we just constantly had a little bit of shake. He would spend hours with me like, all right, let's get this in. And he finally said, I'm going to give this off to so-and-so. And I'm like, so I got credit for like R&D work for it. Yeah, which kind of helped a little bit. But it was just like, oh my gosh, like this is just a whole nother level of like compositing, But I got to learn from a bunch of artists there that are actually now leads at like Scanline VFX in LA. And absolutely amazing artists. These guys had just walked off of Star Wars. And it was like Star Wars Episode 7 or something. And I was like, where are you from? Like, I'm a teacher. He's like, oh, I just got done with Star Wars, and I'm like, oh, So I was learning from guys who worked on Star Wars, and it was a crash course. And because of that, I had learned what it was and I was a teacher. I was a generalist teacher. So when I tell you I've had students that were like, when I got history, you taught us 1% of what we should have known, and I'm like, how would I know? I'm coming from a game design background, and I'm teaching generalist courses, and I was handed the section on compositing, right? So I would get a lot of like the guys who go way up in the industry kind of sending like complaints to me at the time. They were saying, oh man, I'm like, yeah, I've worked at a studio. Okay, you learn in one day what you would learn in 3 weeks at a college. I mean, that's just the reality of what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you really, coming full circle here, there has to be, and we tried to do this, and that's where that Thrill Ride movie was. We heard the complaints, and we incorporated feature films into the curriculum.
Yeah.
That made our job twice as hard. Not just teaching and babysitting and taking care of and helping the students, but also working on a feature film at the same time. I mean, that's crazy. If we were not working, we'd be spending unpaid hours at the sound stages watching these films made. So we were dedicated, and we still got slack from students. We still got complaints and whines and gripes. And personally, I needed to retire from that for a while. And that's when I kind of took some time and said, okay, it may be different in where you're at, but the American students can be like that. And that's just I don't want to say I'm kind of like, people always kind of sometimes comment and say, oh, you're so jaded. And so I'm not jaded. I love teaching, but I want to be able to teach people with an affordable price. They don't have a big burden of finances to put forth. And I want to teach the stuff that I really know. And that's why I've developed the website of VFXforFilmmakers.com.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is great. I get so many awesome people emailing me saying how thankful they are, how they did this. And then eventually the people I was interviewing from DNEG and others were saying, yeah, I learned from your training. It's in my reel. And I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I've kind of find out where I am. Will I teach again at a major university? That will depend on the university itself. It has to be straight up. Hey, who knows? Maybe I'll make my own university. But I think Lost Boys, to me, they're doing it right. There's something about what Lost Boys is doing. It might be pricey, but I'm watching the videos. I'm hearing the testimonies. And again, they're not paying me or anything like that.
Yeah.
I actually tried to contact them for an interview and they never got back to me. But I see what they do and I go, I think you've got it down. You're also geographically in the right place too for the students.
Yeah. And like you were saying, I don't know what it's like over here with the kind of students with that. Exactly the same, to be honest. But
we are stuck between a rock and a hard place. We're stuck between an administration that wants to make money, that wants the doors open because the economies are collapsing.
That's it, yeah.
And over here, we've got the students barking at us for, why aren't you the greatest artist ever lived? That's who you should be for what you're getting paid. And we weren't getting paid a lot, as instructors. So when they think we're making oodles of money and riding around in Ferraris or something. That's not the case. So
and why didn't
those two things.
And why didn't you answer your email at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning? Oh, I know I left 5 hours.
Exactly. And part of being a teacher is to being like there's a selflessness there that you have to, because you have to. These kids are going through one of the most hardship emotional times in the history of mankind, I think, coming up. We're about to go through it. And I have seen so much hurt from the home life and stuff they're going through on top of just trying to make it in the industry. You know what I mean? And it becomes a psychologist, a teacher, a babysitter, all this getting underpaid and being whined at constantly about stuff. I think that's going to I think the only way you can change that is simply by selective enrollment. That's the only way. You want guys who everyone's at least up here so that you're not sitting down here with somebody down here that'll probably never get a job in the industry, yet he's there, and you're busy helping them. And that's the only way to do it.
Yeah. Okay. I've got 2 questions left, if that's all right. So question 11, is it essential to learn Python for Nuke? Now, I would be kind of saying essential. I mean, you could get away and be a compositor without it, but what's your spin on that?
Might as well learn it now, because eventually you're going to need it.
Yeah.
that's. I mean, I've talked to like some of my guests too, and they're like, eventually you're going to go. You know, when I used to work in game design, it was a constant. It was like you got out of this little mini project mentality of your film school days and your VFX school days, and you started to see assembly line of characters coming in, building the characters, rigging the characters, another one, and then you go, we got to get a tool to make this a little faster.
Yeah.
And we started developing tools in our character team at NetherRealm. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is so much faster. And really the idea of working smart and not hard and building those tool sets plays a big part. If you want to, it also makes you, like I said, I have a student who works at major studios like The Mill and so forth. And that's his trade. He goes in and he sets up pipelines to different studios all across the U.S. You know, and he was big on that. You know, he would spend hours and hours and hours reading about color science and stuff that you would think, oh, I don't even know that. I'm new. You know?
Yeah. No,
but,
great.
yeah, this is a weird time we're entering into right now, because I think economically things are very unstable. And for me, I'm not only a teacher, but I also I'm a leader at a church, so I've been spending a lot of my times concentrating on people's needs and in regards to God and so forth.
Yeah.
So I think that's more important than anything, because you can run out the door, become famous, do this, spend your nights eating at fancy restaurants and all this, but ultimately, where you're going in the end is, I think, more important.
Definitely, yeah, I agree with that. We've got to our final question, which is, can you briefly explain how you manage, or what is your workflow for managing out of focus green screen, for example, hair that isn't in focus or a hand within motion blur? So that kind of whole edge management. It is quite a vague question, because I guess there's different things you can do, and they can check out your tutorials, I'm sure. But managing, I think
FX PhD has a very good training video on this.
Okay.
I recommend getting a quick subscription from them, and then you could drop it if you're sick of it. But they have so much great training on there.
Is that the art and science of green screen? Is that the course?
I think it is. Yeah, they got the woman, and then they got something in foreground. He goes over the pipeline for that. That I would go straight there. Don't even bother with me. I have a good tutorial on how to do keying that I learned from the guys who I dealt with over at what is now Carbon VFX, formerly Film Workers. And they taught me keying to a level that was crazy. I was actually learning from 2 different camps. I learned from the LA guys that were flown in to work on these Sam Jackson commercials, and then the Chicago-based compositors who were really working off of Tony Lyons' tutorials through creativelions.com. I think it's called Compositing Mentor now. I think he changed his YouTube channel.
That's a really good series, that is.
His is like the top of that. So when I started to see their whole pipeline, their layout, I go, where did you get this from? And they're like, Tony Lyons. So, they got inspired from it. They didn't steal it or nothing like that. But it was just like, you look at it, and then I'm like, Tony Lyons. And then I would go and look at Tony's videos, which I saw a long time ago, but I never got into it. I go, oh, I see. And after going through the crazy experience of such a level of detail of keying, Brad Moore, I believe he's now the senior compositor at Scanline VFX, or some big VFX house in LA or San Francisco right now. He taught me. He had 15 years of compositing experience, and he sat me down. He's like, okay, and he would zoom up on a pixel. And the guy was absolutely amazing. And I learned exponential. It was 3 months, a little under 3 months, I think. And man, I learned so much. And that's the reality. So for any student out there, your students, they need to realize that production is really where you're going to take off. School will get you started. Don't look down at school and say, well, I was in production. We learned like 10 months of school in 3 weeks. Yeah, duh. So, the best thing I could say to colleges is try to incorporate independent contracting artists to come in with real world projects to collaborate in some sort of, whatever, postdoc or something like that, where people collaborate on real projects. Some of the best compositors that I have students that are leads at ILM right now, and they would be jumping into that type of stuff. They were jumping into that stuff.
All right, well, that is all the questions that we've got so far. So I think, obviously you're going to be very busy with the move and starting a Purdy, so we will leave the questions there. So like I said, again, thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
So that now concludes the 2 parts of our interview with Matt Skonicki. Huge thank you to Matt. Don't forget to check out his website and his YouTube channel. And if there's anyone you want me to interview as well, guys, just let me know in the comments below and I'll make sure I do that. But cheers for joining in, and I'll see you next time.